कथामृतम् तप्तजीवनम् कविभिरीरितम् कल्मषापहम् श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततम् भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना. So we will continue with the gospel from the portion which we studied in the last class. We were studying the parable of the two farmers, the master's conversation with Vijay Goswami. So we will read the parable and then we will go to the discussion. Let me tell you a story about strong renunciation. At one time, there was a drought in a certain part of the country. The farmers began to cut long channels to bring water to their fields. One farmer was stubbornly determined. He took a vow that he would not stop digging until the channel connected his field with the river. He set to work. The time came for his bath, and his wife sent their daughter to him with oil. "Father," said the girl, "it is already late. Rub your body with oil and take your bath." "Go away," thundered the farmer. "I have too much to do now." It was past midday, and the farmer was still at work in his field. He didn't even think of his bath. Then his wife came and said, "Why haven't you taken your bath? The food is getting cold. You overdo everything. You can finish the rest tomorrow, or even today after dinner." The farmer scolded her furiously and ran at her, spade in hand, crying, "What, have you no sense? There's no rain. The crops are dying. What will the children eat? You all will starve to death. I have taken a vow not to think of bath and food today before I bring water to my field." The wife saw his state of mind and ran away in fear. Through a whole day's back-breaking labor, the farmer managed by evening to connect his field with the river. Then he sat down and watched the water flowing into his field with a murmuring sound. His mind was filled with peace and joy. He went home, called his wife, and said to her, "Now give me some oil and prepare me a smoke." With serene mind, he finished his bath and meal and retired to bed, where he snored to his heart's content. The determination he showed is an example of strong renunciation. Now there was another farmer who was also digging a channel to bring water to his field. His wife too came to the field and said to him, "It's very late. Come home. It isn't necessary to overdo things." The farmer didn't protest much, but put aside his spade and said to his wife, "Well, I will go home since you ask me to." All laugh. That man never succeeded in irrigating his field. This is a case of mild renunciation. As without strong determination the farmer cannot bring water to his field, so also without intense yearning a man cannot realize God. To Vijay, "Why don't you come here now as frequently as before?" So this story is very plain and simple, which speaks of yearning. That unless we have a very intense yearning for attaining the spiritual goal, we can never progress in spiritual path. So Sri Ramakrishna used to hate one song. He used to just sometimes discourage others singing one song. The song's line goes like this: "Tera vanat vanat vanijay." That just go on with your practice. Today or tomorrow, you will make it. So this idea Sri Ramakrishna never liked, that you should have a determination that today itself, now itself, I will reach the goal. So that's the yearning which has been spoken of through this story. Now, even in Yoga Sutra, this story actually reflects two very vital sutras of the Yoga Sutra. Two. The first is Tivra Sangveganam Asana. That all the spiritual practices which has been enunciated through the yoga, eightfold yoga practices. Now the question comes, when shall I attain the goal? That you speak of practicing yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. These are the 8 steps. Well, I start my journey. Can you say what's the time duration which will be taken to complete my journey? And as an answer, it has been mentioned, Tivra Sangveganam Asana. There cannot be any fixed duration as per your aspiration. If you are intensely yearning to achieve the goal, it can be a very short journey. Otherwise, it can go on. We don't know when it is going to end. So this, as per your yearning, as is your earning, so is your success. So Tivra Sangveganam Asana. That's one thing. But there's another wonderful meaning hidden in this story, which actually is indicated by another Yoga Sutra in the 4th chapter, the last chapter, the Kaivalya Pada. What is that sutra? Nimittam aprayojakam prakritinam varana bhedastu tata kshetrikavat. What it speaks of? That all our endeavors in the spiritual life has as such no direct implication as per the goal is concerned. What's the idea? That we are already the self. I am the conscious principle. I have to attain nothing. I am already that. Then what's the spiritual practices meant for? That somehow the ignorance has dawned in. Spiritual practices are meant to remove that ignorance, and then my real nature will manifest as the thing which is obscuring my vision is removed. That ignorance is obscuring my vision of myself. That ignorance is removed, the self reveals itself. So that's the idea which is indicated even in the Yoga Sutra in the 4th chapter. What's that idea? Nimittam aprayojakam. Nimittam means all our efforts. They are aprayojakam. They are secondary. They are not primary. Prakritinang varana bhedastu tata kshetrikavat. Exactly the same example which Sri Ramakrishna is giving. That the nature has the tremendous capacity to reveal our real nature once the varana bheda means the obstruction is removed. The nature fills in, means the nature has infinite capacity. So, just the ultimate spiritual goal is waiting. But before that, as we start progressing in our spiritual journey, the more and more the ignorance falls off. The nature with all its infinite potential starts manifesting through our personality as the obstructions which are on the way of the manifestation of the Prakriti is removed. And the example is Tata Kshetrikavat. Just as a farmer, the farmer to bring water to his field, what he does? The same, the irrigation. He removes the obstacle which is on the way of getting the water from the river to his field. Most probably there is a dam, and from the dam a canal is there, but the dam is there which is blocking the flow of the water. So you have to remove the blockage, and the water naturally flows in. Once you don't have to bring the water, there is no need, no effort to bring the water. It naturally flows in. Just you have to remove the obstruction. So the same thing. Here, all the spiritual practices is just to remove the obstruction. As the farmer, you will find very nicely it has been mentioned how long the sadhana is, as long as the water is not channelized. Once it is channelized, very nicely Sri Ramakrishna is saying that he's asking his wife that give me some oil, prepare some smoke, and with a serene mind he has his bath and meal, and then he retires to bed and snores, then everything is favorable. So that's the idea which is being spoken of here in this story, that all our effort is to remove the obstacle. As Swami Vivekananda used to say very nicely, religion is the manifestation of the divinity already in man. The divinity is my nature. The obstacle has to be removed and the divinity manifests. And obstacle is the ignorance. So that has to be removed. So these are the two ideas. You will find the story has been chosen in such a way that it indicates both the thing, that all our spiritual practices are not to attain something. It is already there. We have to just remove the obstacle and our real nature manifests. As Swami Vivekananda's the definition, religion, he has given two definitions, one of religion, another of education. Education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. So that also speaks of removal of all the obstacles and all the perfection, which are the powers of Prakriti, the nature, that finds manifestation to us. The entire third chapter of Yoga Sutra speaks of all those vibhutis. They are not something which we should yearn for, but they come in the process of our spiritual journey and ultimately take us, they are the milestones which ultimately takes us to the spiritual destination. So that's the idea which has been spoken of by Sri Ramakrishna through this story. So these stories are wonderful. It actually encompasses so many ideas and it gives us the real picture of what real spirituality is. So let us proceed with what Sri Ramakrishna's discussion, with Vijay. Vijay, sir, I wish to very much. The last line after telling this story, why he told this story to Vijay? Because he finds that Vijay has a tremendous potentiality for spiritual evolution. But because of his lot of social responsibilities and entanglements, he cannot come frequently to Sri Ramakrishna. It's not that Sri Ramakrishna wants that he should come frequently to him. His idea is that he should be more yearning for spiritual evolution. So that's being indirectly told as, why don't you come as frequently as before? As if previously that yearning which he had, that has been dwindled because of all his social responsibilities. That's why he's saying, why don't you come here now as frequently as before? And Vijay's answer is, sir, I wish to very much, but I am not free. I have accepted work in Brahmo Samaj. So now, as just we told, the Sri Ramakrishna saw in Vijay the potentiality to become a spiritually illumined and subsequently a great spiritual teacher. And that's why he spoke to him with such forcefully and uncompromisingly, as we will see in the in the conversation which continues after this. The Master, it is woman and gold that binds man and robs him of his freedom. It is woman that creates the need for gold. For woman, one man becomes the slave of another and so loses his freedom. Then he cannot act as he likes. So these are the very basic things that even in our scriptures they say, what is the thing? That what binds us is the ashana, the desires. And all that, how we are being enslaved. Who is slave? That one becomes slave. That we become slave of another person. But actually we are becoming the slave of nature, Prakriti. How? That we will find that all our desires at last can be boiled down to three. Putraishana, Vittaishana, Yashaishana. That desire for progeny, desire for wealth, and desire for name and fame. And all the three, directly or indirectly, is linked with the propagation of nature. The sustenance of the nature. The nature is sustained through that. Putraishana, we need not explain. With the propagation of the progeny, the nature is sustained. Generation after generation. Vittaishana, wealth. Unless you have wealth, unless you sustain yourself, you cannot think of having progeny. So that also indirectly speaks of sustenance of nature. Yashaishana, this desire for name and fame. Throughout our this animal kingdom, we will find that this name and fame, even in human being, the same thing, that why that one wants to project oneself from others, that he is more powerful, he is more intelligent, just to get a good match so that they can have proper progeny. In the animal kingdom, it's very palpably visible. The lion has its own territory. It wants to show its power so that it can have its own progeny. It can have its mate, and then it can have progeny. The same thing, directly or indirectly, is also the reason for the humans to have good job, good position in life, so that they can also have good match. You'll find nature is working. Though we consciously know it or not, it is the nature which is working through these three desires. This is the only three desires. All our desires can be boiled down to these three. And we think it is the fulfillment of this desire is the goal of our life. We go for it, for the fulfillment of the desires, forget that it's actually nature who is working through us. The nature has made us its slave. Because we will find that no desires are fulfilled. That once you have a craving, the moment it is fulfilled, you feel that you are at the top of the world, and then it evaporates, it's gone. And again, you will be chasing for the desire, and we all forget, that we will get some momentary happiness, and then again it will be evaporated. We always remember the ecstasy, we forget the evaporation. And we'll find there is more joy in anticipation than in the real, enjoyment of the pleasure. All these things speaks of that nature is making us full. It is making us, it's our tool. By giving us that happiness, it is using that happiness, that momentary happiness, as a lollipop to make us do certain things by which the nature is propagated, the nature is sustained. So that way we will find that it's true that once we are bound by these three, that woman and gold, that once we deserve for this progeny, the wealth comes, yasheshana comes, and all this, we think we are the master. With my power, I have gained all the position in life, good relations, children, wealth, but we forget nature is making full of us. That's a real thing, because if really with our power we have got all those things, what happens? Do we enjoy them eternally? Again, nature robs everything, churns out everything. In time, old age comes, disease, death, everything is waiting. It gives us, again takes away. Once our job is fulfilled, nature takes away, robs us from all those things. So it is just made us a slave. And that's what's very, very plain words when Sri Ramakrishna is saying. Just when we read those words, we may say, oh, he is misogynist, as if but he's just saying the fact of life. We may just turn our head from the fact, we just turn our eyes from the fact and just say, no, that we are quite pragmatic with all the so-called ways of life. But actually we are being fooled. We are the slaves of nature. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that man becomes the slave. He loses his freedom. Then he cannot act as he likes. And then he stays a story. The priests in the temple of Govindaji at Jaipur were celibates at first. And at that time, they had fiery natures. Once the king of Jaipur sent for them, but they didn't obey him. They said to the messenger, "Ask the king to come to see us." After consultation, the king and his ministers arranged marriages for them. From then on, the king didn't have to send for them. They would come to him for of themselves and say, Your Majesty, we have come with our blessings. Here are the sacred flowers of the temple. Deign to accept them. They came to the palace, for now they always wanted money for one thing or another. The building of a house, the rice-taking ceremony of their babies, or the rituals connected with the beginning of their children's education. So now, just as simple as that, Sri Ramakrishna is saying that even from the worldly point of view, live out the spiritual. That once you are entangled, now you are bound with so many necessities. When you were alone, you were free, and now you are bound with so many necessities. Is it that he is asking all to be so much evolved spiritually that they go for the extreme renunciation? No. We should always remember the context. It is Vijay Goswami to whom Sri Ramakrishna is speaking, in whom he found tremendous spiritual potentiality. That Sri Ramakrishna could scan the mind. We will find that in later period, Vijay Goswami did become a great spiritual teacher. He renounced everything. He led a very, very intense spiritual life. At that time when Sri Ramakrishna met him, he was just a priest in Brahmo Samaj. He thought that just doing that priest, the work of a priest, getting some salary, maintaining the family, that alone is the be-all and end-all of his existence. But Sri Ramakrishna saw the tremendous potentiality, that he belonged to a very reputed family, spiritually reputed family, and he himself had that samskaras, that tremendous spiritual, that potentiality was within him. That's why to him he is instructing that way. So we shouldn't take these words as if it is meant for all. It is to Vijay Goswami, in whom he saw that tremendous potentiality. He is speaking in this manner. So he's continuing with the stories. There is a story of the 1200 Vaishnava monks and 1300 there is a story of 1200 Naras and 1300 Nadis. Naras means the Vaishnava monks and the Nadis are the Vaishnava nuns. Virabhadra, the son of Nityananda Goswami, had 1300 7-headed disciples. They attained great spiritual powers that alarmed their teacher. My disciples have acquired great spiritual powers, thought Virabhadra. Whatever they say to people will come to pass. Wherever they go, they may create alarming situations, for people offending them unwittingly will come to grief. Thinking thus, Virabhadra one day called them to him and said, See me after performing your daily devotions on the bank of the Ganges. These disciples had such a high spiritual nature that while meditating, they would go into samadhi and be unaware of the river water flowing over their heads during the flood tide. Then the ebb tide would come and still they would remain absorbed in meditation. Now 100 of these disciples had anticipated what their teacher would ask of them, lest they should have to disobey his injunctions. They had quickly disappeared from the place before he summoned them. So they did not go to Virabhadra with the others. The remaining 1200 disciples went to the teacher after finishing their meditation. Virabhadra said to them, These 1300 nuns will serve you. I ask you to marry them. As you please, revered sir, they said, but 100 of us have gone away. Thenceforth each of these 1200 disciples had a wife. Consequently, they all lost their spiritual power. Their austerities did not have their original fire. The company of women robbed them of their spirituality because it destroyed their freedom. So this is a story, very interesting, that our energy is after all fixed. If we are dissipating in the sensual pursuits, we can never think of channelizing them in some higher pursuits. It's not spiritual. It's speaking that spiritual is the ultimate goal. But before that, the psychic powers do come. How? Why? What's the example? That when you are storing the energy, how it gets converted into psychic powers. Just Swami Vivekananda in one of his Raja Yoga lectures is giving a very nice example. That in the time of Swamiji already that experiments on the transmission of electricity has started. And he was quite aware of this electricity. So in one of his lectures he is indicating that we have the idea that for the electricity to flow, it needs a wire, isn't it? Unless there is a conductor, the electricity cannot flow. And then Swamiji is saying, but what about the thunderbolt? We find that the thunderbolt, that arc is formed, and it comes that the voltage, the tremendous electric voltage which has been created in the clouds, it comes, it forms an arc and is absorbed in the earth. What's the conductor? What's the conductor there? So he's saying that when the electrical power is tremendous, when the voltage is extreme, you need not need such a conductor. It can even pass without the so-called a favorable conductor. Even in vacuum, there's a vacuum tube, you know, that the cathode and anode rays, that when the voltage is tremendously high, these electrons are transmitted. So this in the thunderbolt also the same thing happens. So what Swamiji is indicating, that when that tremendous electric potential is there, even without the medium, that current can pass. So same thing when within our body, if you are concentrating your energy, at present we think that our will has to get converted into action, that I have to move the chair. So how? My will is getting converted into a nervous current. So from the brain, the will has been generated by the mind, and from the brain through the nerves, or from the spinal cord through the nerves, the message is being transmitted. It's also like an electric current, and then you move the muscles movement. Everything is because of that nerve current, which is just like the electric wire, and then the muscles goes and contracts, and whatever work you have to do, you are doing. So without nerve, the will has to get converted into a nervous current which is passing through your nerves, and at last is activating your muscles to do certain things. We can never think just by sitting by my will I can do certain things. But if just like that, the thunderbolt, you have tremendous this power, then the medium is not necessary. And you know the idea of the arousing of the Kundalini is also very interesting. That Swamiji is indicating that what happens when you really start conserving the energy and trying to focus your the mental strength becomes so strong, so intense. Generally we have an idea that the central canalus, which in Yoga Shastras is spoken of as Sushumna, it's in the center of the spinal cord, which has nothing to do with the passing of the nerve current. There is no nerve current. It is just something through which the nutrition, the nourishment is being carried to all the spinal system, the spinal cord. But there is no nerve there, central canalus. And Yoga Shastra says that Sushumna opens. It's just like a cathode ray tube. And through that, the nerve current starts moving upwards. So when you're storing the energy, and then the various chakras starts opening up and resulting in the revelation of various levels of psychic powers. And when you have not reached the goal, this can be distraction. That why Veerabhadra was concerned that to evolve spiritually is good, but to attain the powers and get stuck with it can be very dangerous. They say that you shouldn't make a so-called spiritually evolved person angry, because he has a tremendous mental power. When even unintentionally, if he is angry and his focused thoughts or thought can be very powerful to affect the other person. So that's why, and at the same time, he's not supposed to be angry, but he's not yet that evolved. He's on the path. So those persons can be dangerous if they suddenly get angry. We find in our scriptures like Durvasha Muni that he gets easily angry and curses people, and the curse do work. What it speaks of, the tremendous mental power, psychic, but it's not spiritual. You are on the path. It is just a milestone. You have to transcend that to really reach the spiritual goal. But unless you have transcended, that can really harm others. That psychic power can harm others. And that's why Virabhadra, this Nityananda Goswami, the son Virabhadra, who had these all disciples, he was concerned that they may unknowingly just harm others. And that's why he wanted to just get rid of those psychic powers. So the main idea of the story is that it is something which is a science, which we at present may not know. This is in academic field, we don't know. That if you control yourself, if you just can have a tremendous power of control over yourself, then the nerve currents do become so strong that it doesn't need the nerves for your will to get converted into action. It can simply act without medium, just the way the thunderbolt or the cathode ray tube. We find that the current is passing without medium as such. It doesn't need a wire. So similarly, when you are storing your energy, it can really result in a huge upheaval of the psychic powers. And that's the thing which is being indicated through this story. The real purpose is just to say that in a spiritual journey, we have to, that's accumulate all our, we have to accumulate our power, stop the diversification, diversification of our energy through various channels. It has to be focused for one goal. Otherwise, the spiritual goal is not attainment is not possible. I still remember in Belur Math, in some youth convention, in a question answer session, there was the students, many students came from various schools and colleges, and some Swami was answering to the questions they were asking. And one student asked that, is it necessary for spiritual evolution to become a monk? Can one not be a householder and become can pursue the path of spirituality? So yes, it is possible. You can. Then why you have become monks? And then what he told is something very interesting. He told that if really you want to spiritual progress in an accelerated manner, very fast, then you have to focus all your energy. And then he didn't go for a very large illustration. He just gave one small illustration to explain that. That the young boy just was having his beard. The line of beard was coming, and the Swami told, have you started shaving? And he of course just told, yeah, I have just started shaving. The others were laughing because suddenly Swamiji was speaking of his beard and all. So his mustache and all. So he told, yes, just I have started shaving. And then the Swami asked just a simple question. He asked a question to that boy. Do you use your shaving blade for cutting the pencil? Ever do you use it? To shave the blade, you need a tremendous sharp razor. You cannot simply use it for other purposes. It will become blunt. You cannot shave that with that blade. So the blade which you need for shaving, it cannot be used for cutting the pencil. So that's the thing which is being indicated through this story. That if you need that to in that intense spiritual evolution, very fast spiritual evolution, you have to focus all your energy so that you have that tremendous power to attain the goal in a very short time. Otherwise, it's all dissipated. So just consolidate the discussion, we just read the story once more so that now the ideas just all come together. There's a story of the 1200 Nairas, the Vaishnava monks, and 1300 Nairis, the Vaishnava nuns. Virabhadra, the son of Nityananda Goswami, had 1300 seven-headed disciples. They attained great spiritual powers that alarmed their teacher. My disciples have acquired great spiritual powers, thought Virabhadra. Whatever they say to people will come to pass. Wherever they go, they may create alarming situations, for people offending them unwittingly will come to grief. Thinking thus, Virabhadra one day called them to him and said, "See me after performing your daily devotions on the bank of the Ganges." These disciples had such a high spiritual nature that while meditating, they would go into samadhi and be unaware of the river water flowing over their heads during the flood tide. Then the ebb tide would come and still they would remain absorbed in meditation. Now 100 of these disciples had anticipated what their teacher would ask of them, lest they should have to disobey his injunctions. They had quickly disappeared from the place before he summoned them. So they did not go to Virabhadra with the others. The remaining 1200 disciples went to the teacher after finishing their meditation. Virabhadra said to them, "These 1300 nuns will serve you. I ask you to marry them." "As you please, revered sir," they said, "but 100 of us have gone away." Thenceforth, each of these 1200 disciples had a wife. Consequently, they all lost their spiritual power. Their austerities did not have their original fire. The company of women robbed them of their spirituality because it destroyed their freedom. Then Sri Ramakrishna continues, "You yourself perceive how far you have gone down by being a servant of others." Again, one finds that people with many university degrees, scholars with a vast English education, accept service under their English masters and are daily trampled under their boots. The one cause of all this is woman. They have married and set up a gay fair with their wives and children. Now they cannot go back much as they would like to. Hence all these insults and humiliations, all this suffering from slavery. So not only spiritual gets obliterated, even it takes away our freedom. As Holy Mother used to say, that one who is not married is half liberated. Is half liberated because the one who is not married, if he wills, just as simple as that, he can progress spiritually. Nothing is going to stop him. At home, if now I want to meditate and my other sibling wants to watch the TV, and you find that it's almost impossible. You want to lead a spiritual life, others don't want, and you find that others' will is something which becomes a detrimental factor for your spiritual progress. You cannot. The entire household is not favoring you, but when you are alone, maybe you are not progressing spiritually. You are leading a casual life, but if you will that, okay, let me now focus my energy for my spiritual growth, nothing is there to stop you. So that way he is half liberated. It's not that you are really liberated. Half liberated means if you want, nothing is there. The other secondary other factors which holds you down, they are not there. It needs just your own yearning. Even in a householder, we will find there are so many people who after marriage do think that if I have not married, I could have led a very intense spiritual life. But that opportunity is gone. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That that now they cannot go back much as they would like to. They would like to, but they cannot. So in English they say opportunity comes only once. That jokingly we say that someone was knocking at the door and he knocked twice, knock, and the one before opening the door from inside he asked, "Who is it?" He told opportunity, and he told it cannot be because it knocks only once. So it knocked twice. So the idea is that even in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is there that when your yearning has come, immediately you renounce, because you don't know again when you will get that yearning. That chance will not, when it comes, you don't know. What's the verse which is in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the mantra? Yat ahareva virajet tat ahareva prabrajet. The moment you get that viraja, that tremendous renunciation comes, move out. Grihatva vanatva. That there are 4 stages of life: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. So the natural process is to follow these stages of life. From brahmachari, from a student, you become a householder, then lead the life of a recluse, and then take the ultimate sannyasa, renunciation. But there are a few who have that intense renunciation. For them, it is prescribed. The state of brahmachari, you all have to lead. That basic as a student, just as a minor cannot become a monk. He has to have that basic education so that he has the power to take his own decision. And now he is mature enough to take his own decision. And then he has, even the scriptures give you that license. That yat ahareva virad. The moment that renunciation comes, tat ahareva prabrajet. Move out. Grihatva vanadva. Either from the state of grihastha or from the state of vanaprastha. You can move out. Because you don't know. Once you delay, you get entangled. The other factors come and simply entangle you, and then it is almost impossible to get rid of. So that's why this saying that it's that when that renunciation comes, don't wait. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That even the external factors won't in any way help you to progress spiritually. So why he is, again we should remind that it is not for all. These all instructions are for Vijay Goswami, within whom he found that tremendous spiritual potentiality. So otherwise we will find in other contexts, Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that ghare thekeo sahay, that even leading a life of householder, you can progress spiritually. But here, those who are already householders, for them he is not discouraging. He is saying that yes, even as a householder, he is just giving different type of reasoning there. He says the house, your house is like a fort. It protects you from so many dangers. It's a fact. If you don't have tremendous renunciation, the house do act like a fort. How? We will find that when I am within the family, the fear of disrepute saves me from so many degradation. You find when a student is living out of the family in some city for their education, you will generally find that they lead a very loose life sometimes, not all. Many have the tendency. Why? That the home was actually like a fort. It was protecting. The parents and everyone were there. The family reputation was there. That was holding them. Now nothing is there to hold them. So unless you have a tremendous renunciation, then family do help. But if you have tremendous renunciation, for them Sri Ramakrishna is saying, cut off, cut asunder, move out and live the life of a renunciate. It is a path of the alone to the alone. It is journey of the alone to the alone. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating to Vijay, in whom he found that tremendous spiritual potentiality. Once a man realizes God through intense dispassion, he is no longer attached to woman. Even if he must lead the life of a householder, he is free from fear of and attachment to woman. Suppose there are 2 magnets, one big and the other small. Which one will attract the iron? The big one, of course. God is the big magnet. Compared to him, woman is the small one. What can woman do? Again, this speaks of this in yoga, in Narada Bhakti Sutra, the very second sutra speaks of this. What is bhakti? This is parama prema rupa. It is of the nature of supreme love, parama prema rupa. This supreme love is both qualitatively and quantitatively. That we explain in different contexts this idea that when you start contemplating on God, we may find what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. It's not a fact. Our attachment towards the world is so strong. Our passion, our love for devotion for God is very weak. It actually is just the opposite. That I find that my love for God doesn't in any way helps me to get rid of the worldly passions. It doesn't help. But Sri Ramakrishna is saying that It is that one who has one who has progressed spiritually. For him, God becomes like that powerful magnet. What's the idea? In various contexts we have discussed this. It actually speaks of the neuroplasticity of our mind. That when you start practicing, when you're thinking of God, first it is your resolution, it's your willpower. Love is yet to develop. But you have taken the oath, the resolution that you will practice. When you go on practicing, when you go on thinking of God repeatedly, day after day, then in the mind we know that what I do again and again, that creates a path. And once the path is created, I start liking it. That's the way of the mind. And this is the thing, by repeatedly practicing a devotion, that at the beginning it is just a preparatory bhakti, gauni bhakti. And once the path is created, I start really having an emotional inclination for the contemplation of God. I've developed a liking, an obsession. But this obsession is something which is very different to other obsessions. How? Other obsessions are dependent on something external. And as a result, anything, wealth, relation, everything. All my worldly obsessions are dependent on something external. As a result, always that fear factor is there, anxiety is there. As long as I do not get it, the fear is there, I may not get it. And when I get it, again the fear is there, I may lose it. So all our obsessions are associated with fear and anxiety. But this new love, when once you develop, that I think of the divine and I find a devotion in my heart, this is something no one can take away from me. It is something intrinsic. It is not something external. It is intrinsic. As a result, what happens, that my inclination becomes more, I develop more and more inclination to take recourse to this type of obsession. That example which we gave previously, that all our desires previously which we have developed is just like traveling through some traffic. Because all our objects are extraneous, as all our objects of liking are extraneous. There is a clash. What I like, you also like. The job which I am applying for, hundreds are applying, only 2 will get. So there is not scope for that all will get. My desire is in clash with your desire. Everywhere, in all fields you will find. The jobs, relations, everywhere. It is a clash. Here, I develop the love for God, you develop the love for God. There is no clash. It is something intrinsic. As a result, what happened, that all previous roads were like passing through the traffic. They were all crossroads. I don't know whether I will get the green signal. There may be red signal also. But now I have created a road which is like a freeway. There are no junctions. If you have a freeway, why should you go through the traffic? So the natural inclination becomes to go through that freeway once you have developed it. And the more you go through that, you have developed an inclination, more you go, the other paths just remains, that you are not traversing them. And the more you traverse, because of neuroplasticity, what happens? The more and more it gets deepened. The groove gets deepened. The more the groove gets deepened, the more intense is your love. So the quantity as well as quality. It is intrinsic, qualitatively different, and quantitatively it is becoming more and more intense, because you are again and again passing through that. Just like if you are walking through a grass field, if you just follow a definite path, the grass dries up and a road is created. And now you change the course. You start traveling in a different route. A new road will be formed. And the previous road, as you are not traversing, the grass will grow and it is gone. So that happens in the mind. A new path is formed as you are not traversing the other paths. They start getting obliterated. And these paths get more and more intense. The groove is getting more and more deep. And the love becomes really intense. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say that how to really attain God, when 3 types of love can be added up. As a human being, we find what are the 3 types of love which is very intense. Mother's love for the child, a miserly person's love for the wealth, and mother's love for the child, miserly love for the wealth, and this another love is that what you say, this a chaste wife's love for his husband. So these are the three types of loves which is very intense. These three, if you add up, that he's speaking of, that type of love when you have for God, that takes you to that ultimate spiritual evolution. What it speaks of, the same thing, is it is so that groove has been created, it is so deep that we can never think of any other pathways of the mind that can be so deep. You are traversing that only at the cost of others. Till I have developed love for God, all other desires can coexist. But once you have developed love for God, it has to be at the expense of the others, because it's a freeway. Others are all through traffic. You never go through them anymore. You're traversing through that. And that speaks of quantitative as well as the qualitative superiority of this type of love. So once you have developed that, then all the so-called things fall off. Now God becomes a strong magnet. Otherwise, if we relate these words to our life, it has no meaning. We feel, no, I have devotion for God, but it doesn't stop me in getting, getting involved in all other worldly activities. Actually, it makes me forget of God. The worldly activities distracts me so much. I try to keep my mind on God. The worldly activity distracts me because I have tremendous love for them. And Sri Ramakrishna is saying just the opposite, that God is a powerful magnet. Yes, when I have already started progressing in the spiritual path, a time comes when really God is that big magnet and everything becomes small compared to that. So once a man, that's why the first phrase is very important. Once a man realizes God through intense dispassion, once he has realized, then, not before that, he is no longer attached to woman. Then it becomes like a big magnet. Even if he must lead the life of a householder, he is free from fear of attachment to woman. Suppose there are two magnets, one big and another small. Now this has become like a big magnet. The other things cannot in any way. That we were speaking of traffic path and the freeway. Says the same thing. You can speak of big magnet and small magnet. The others are like the small magnet. You won't be drawn by them. The big magnet is always pulling you, the freeway. Which one will attract? The iron. The big one, of course. God is the big magnet. Compared to him, woman is a small one. What can woman do? So that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that once you develop this intense dispassion, this God becomes a tremendous force which helps you to get rid of everything. So worshipping, so then a devotee asks, when this conversation is going on between Ramakrishna and Vijay Goswami, some others are also there. So there's one among them. He asks, "Sir, shall we hate woman then?" Master, he who has realized God does not look upon woman with the eye of lust. So he is not afraid of her. He perceives clearly that women are but so many aspects of the Divine Mother. He worships them all as the Mother herself. So, Sri Ramakrishna speaks of two states. Once during sadhana, and another once you have reached the goal. And then you become a Vijnani. You come down, but your total perspective have changed. You are totally an overhauled personality. That's an overhauling has taken place. Now you're totally different. You are no more the same person. During sadhana, I have to negate everything. Neti, neti. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that when you are climbing the stairs, you have to negate the stairs. The step 1, I climb, go to the step 2. One, as if I am negating. I am just rejecting the steps and going to the top. And when I reach the terrace, then I realize the material, the cement and the bricks and the cement with which the steps are made, the same material with this, the terrace is also made. And now when I come down, I don't have to negate, I know it's the same. The terrace and the steps are made up of the same material. So the idea is that during sadhana, you have to be cautious about your associations, because your mind is having those past associations. A little association with all those relations can pull you down. So you have to negate at the time. But when you have reached the goal, then you see the divinity everywhere. It is a God who has been projected as the entire universe. And now your vision changes. You don't relate to the world through lust. You see God. And that's the thing he's saying. The same here, the God is being described as the mother. The ultimate mother of the universe is being perceived as being manifested in each and every woman. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is saying. He who has realized God. So again, that phrase is important. Does not look upon woman with the eye of lust. Because his total perception has changed. So he's not afraid of her. He perceives clearly. It's not just a matter of mental, your belief, or you're just cogitating with your mind that, oh, she looks like a woman, but she is God. It's nothing like that. She sees clearly. It's a vision because he has come from that perception. As Sri Ramakrishna says, that once you go to that realization, all your doubts fall off. Gata Sangshaya Dhrira Nishchaya. Become firmly, you have become firmly convinced in your conviction. No one can in any way just create doubt in your mind. Once you have seen the ocean, you can never doubt about the existence of it. So that's the thing. You have seen. So now it becomes something, as even William James in his study of world religions, he's saying that if you study the mystics of all the religions, we find they all go to the realization, and that realization has two factors. One is they have realized something which they cannot describe. It is ineffable. But at the same time, it is noetic. They know they have seen something, realized something, which is not mere imagination. They have realized something, and they are firmly convinced with that. No one can in any way create doubt in their mind. That's what is meant by noetic. So that's what's been indicated by the words clearly. He perceives clearly. It's not just a simple conception. He just perceives clearly that women are but so many aspects of the Divine Mother. He worships them all as Mother herself. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. To Vijay, come here now and then. I like to see you very much. So that's the thing. This is very interesting. Why Sri Ramakrishna, whenever he finds anyone having that potentiality for spiritual evolution, he's tremendously trying to draw them towards him. There's a nice episode in the life of Buddha. The moment Buddha attained illumination, the tremendous dispassion was there naturally, and he wanted to simply leave his body. He just wanted to leave his body, and then the second thought came, a very interesting thought, that why he wanted to leave his body, that no one can relate to my illumination. I have reached a state, even if I explain to the world, they will say that what he's speaking makes no sense to them. That's because most of us are so engrossed with the word. He found that if he even tries to relate his realization to the world, it won't make any sense. Then why to leave? I have attained the ultimate goal. Let me just simply get rid of my body. And then a second thought came. Yes, most of the people, they have nothing to do with my realization. But a few are there who are aspiring and need a little help, and that can really enable them to attain that higher spiritual liberation. And then the second thought came, that why not I just try to help them out, those people who are really intensely trying. They are very few. So here also in the life of Sri Ramakrishna we find, whenever he finds, he is actually yearning that after his realization, Mother has told him that the devotees will come to him. And he finds that most of the people, he's just in his words, are like worms just crawling in this earth. And he was constant. He used to go to the terrace of the temple and cry out that, where are you? My mother has told that you will be just visiting. Where are you? That this tremendous yearning was there to help out those who have really the potentiality for him. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna, you will find, is saying, Vijay, come here now and then. I like to see you very much. Because he, as we told, he can scan as if the inner personality. And whenever he finds there is a substance, he won't leave him. He's always trying to draw them near him, because he's there to help them out in their spiritual journey, because he has seen that they are the person who do have that substance, who do have the potentiality to attain that goal. So with this, we stop our discussion. We will continue with the remaining portion of Sri Ramakrishna's conversation with Vijay again in the next class. So thank you all. Namaskar.